The Great Hall of the Galactic Council shimmered like a sea of stars. Floating platforms carried envoys from hundreds of different worlds. Each alien form was different, scaled, feathered, metallic, translucent, yet all fell silent as the Queen of the Vion Dominion entered. Her name was Queen Jalareth, the ruler of one of the oldest empires in the galaxy. She was tall, her skin like polished obsidian, marked with faint blue lines that pulsed softly with life. When she walked, even the air seemed to hum in respect. Her eyes, bright silver, missed nothing. It was not often she appeared in person. When she did, it was because history was about to be written. At the center of the hall stood a small group of humans, newcomers to the galactic community. Earth had joined the Union only 5 years ago, after first contact ended decades of isolation. Most alien races still viewed humans as wild, unpredictable, and short-lived creatures that had somehow reached the stars too early. Among them stood Ryan Solis, the youngest of the human envoys. Barely 20 years old, he was the son of a mechanic, not a soldier or noble. His selection as a junior observer had surprised everyone. Even his commander had warned him, just stay quiet, learn, and don't make anyone angry. But fate had other plans. As the Queen reached her throne, a living structure that pulsed like a heart, the murmurs around the hall faded. Her voice filled the chamber, smooth but sharp, carrying the weight of command. "Delegates of the Union," she began, "I have studied the humans. I have watched their rise, their courage, their chaos, their persistence." She paused, letting the echo of her words hang in the cold air. "And today I make my choice. I claim one among them." Confusion rippled through the chamber. Aliens exchanged looks, translators flickered, and whispers erupted. Claim? What did she mean? Then with a slow movement of her silver eyes, she pointed, directly at Ryan Solis. "He will be mine," she declared, her voice steady as thunder. Signifying the youngest of humanity. The hall fell into stunned silence. Ryan blinked, not sure if he'd heard correctly. His hand instinctively rose to his chest. "Me?" he whispered. The human ambassador beside him looked pale. "Don't speak," he hissed. "Just don't say anything." But Ryan couldn't stay silent. He stepped forward, his heart pounding so loudly he could almost hear it in his ears. The Queen's gaze followed his every move. "Your Majesty," Ryan said carefully, his voice echoing slightly, "I think there must be a mistake. I am just an observer." "I don't belong to anyone," gasps filled the chamber. Many aliens turned their heads away as if expecting him to be struck down instantly. Speaking back to the Queen of the Vion Dominion was unthinkable, but the Queen only tilted her head, curious. "Not a mistake," she said. "A choice." Her silver eyes glowed brighter. "In your kind I see something unmeasured. You are young, yet you stand before me without trembling. You speak even knowing the cost." Her tone wasn't cruel, it was analytical almost. Admiring, Ryan swallowed. "With respect, Your Majesty, humans don't belong to anyone. We stand beside others, not beneath them." A sharp sound spread through the hall as her guards drew their weapons. Sleek, blade-like energy constructs that shimmered dangerously. But the Queen raised one elegant hand and the weapons lowered instantly. "Interesting," she murmured. "A species that defies even a queen." The council moderator, a being made of shifting light, floated forward nervously. "Your Majesty, if I may, claiming a representative of a sovereign race violates Article 9 of the Union Charter." The Queen's expression did not change. "Then amend it." The room erupted in chaos. Dozens of delegates began shouting, lights flashing as translators struggled to keep up. Some accused the Queen of trying to enslave humanity. Others whispered that this was a test or a trap. Through it all, Ryan stood frozen, unsure what to do. Hours later, the council meeting dissolved into turmoil. News of the Queen's declaration spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The alien Queen has claimed a human, the youngest of their kind. What does it mean? Some worlds saw it as an insult, proof that humans were viewed as toys of the powerful. Others called it a sign of honor, a symbol that the most feared ruler in the galaxy saw something in humanity worth claiming. On the Vion flagship, orbiting the gas giant Thalrex, the Queen stood before a massive window, watching storms dance across the planet's surface. Her advisor, General Vator, bowed beside her. "My Queen," the general said, his deep voice vibrating like thunder. The Council will not take this lightly. They already question your control. To claim a human, it may start another political war. The Queen didn't turn. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. A regal figure, calm and unreadable. Let them question, she said softly. They question because they fear change. And change has come, she paused. Do you know what I saw in that boy's eyes? The general hesitated. Defiance? She smiled faintly. No, freedom. A spirit unshaped by fear or custom. It is what our kind lost long ago. Meanwhile, Ryan sat in a quiet chamber within the human embassy. His communicator buzzed endlessly with messages from Earth Command and media networks, but he ignored them. His hands shook slightly. He wasn't afraid of the Queen exactly. He was afraid of what this meant for humanity. The door opened and the human ambassador, Captain Marin Hale, walked in. She looked exhausted, her gray uniform rumpled from hours of argument. Ryan, she said, rubbing her temples, what in God's name did you do? I didn't do anything, he said quickly. She just pointed at me. Well, congratulations, Marin said dryly. You just became the center of the most dangerous political storm in the galaxy. He sighed. Can't we just tell them no? We tried, she said. The Vion delegation insists it's a symbolic bond, whatever that means. But other races are saying it's a challenge. If we reject too harshly, they'll think we're insulting her directly. And nobody wants to insult her. Ryan frowned. So what now? I'm supposed to go live with an alien queen because she made a speech? Marin gave him a tired smile. I wish it were that simple. You're being summoned tomorrow. To her ship, personally. He stared at her in disbelief. Wait, I'm what? You heard me. Don't worry. You'll have diplomatic protection. Just be careful. The Queen is unpredictable. And Rian... She paused, her expression softening. Try not to start another interstellar war. He laughed weakly. I'll do my best. The next day, Ryan boarded the royal transport under heavy security. The ship was unlike anything he'd seen, alive, as if grown rather than built. The walls pulsed with faint light, and the air carried a strange, sweet scent like rain on metal. He was escorted through long halls until he reached a chamber filled with drifting silver threads of energy. At the center stood the Queen alone, her back to him. Human, she said without turning. Do you know why I chose you? Ryan took a steadying breath. No, Your Majesty. But I'd like to. She turned then, her gaze sharp and almost amused. Because the galaxy underestimates you. They see only your fragility, your small world, your short lives. But I have seen what your kind can do. You fight the impossible. You break rules meant to bind you. You build empires out of dust. Her silver eyes glowed brighter. And you do it without permission. Rian felt both pride and discomfort at her words. That doesn't mean I belong to you. I do not seek ownership, she said calmly. I seek alliance. To mark the moment the youngest of your species stood before the oldest of mine, and did not kneel. Her tone softened, almost respectful. This claim is not about power. It is about memory. I wish to remember that once humanity dared to look at a queen, and refused to bow. Ryan stared at her for a long moment. For the first time, he didn't feel anger or fear. He felt something else, understanding. He nodded slowly. Then I accept your memory. But I still stand as myself. The Queen smiled. Not the cold smile of politics, but a rare one of genuine admiration. Good, she said. Never lose that. As he left the chamber, escorted by glowing Vion guards, he didn't realize that across the stars his name was already spreading. Ryan Solace, the human who defied the Queen. The next morning, light from the twin suns of Thalrex filtered through the crystal windows of the Queen's flagship. The giant gas planet below glowed with storms of red and gold, lightning flashing like dragons trapped in clouds. Inside one of the upper chambers, Rian Solace stood before a mirror, adjusting the strange robe the attendants had given him. It shimmered with shifting colors, alive just like everything else on this alien ship. He didn't feel like himself. He felt like a kid who had accidentally stepped into a myth. Two Vion guards waited at the door, tall and still as statues. Their armor reflected the soft blue light around them. When one of them finally spoke, the voice was deep and metallic. Human. The Queen awaits. Ryan nodded nervously. Right, sure, let's go meet royalty again. They walked through long, glowing halls that curved like the inside of a living creature. The air pulsed faintly as though the ship was breathing. Every now and then, Rian could hear faint whispers of energy, like a heartbeat somewhere deep within the metal walls. Finally, the guards stopped in front of tall silver doors. They slid open soundlessly. Queen Jalareth was standing near a floating garden, a collection of bright, luminous flowers that drifted in midair like tiny suns. Her long robe moved as if alive, catching starlight and reflecting it in quiet ripples. "Human," she said without turning, "do you understand the storm you have created?" Ryan hesitated. "If you mean everyone yelling about me on the news, yeah, I kind of noticed." The Queen turned then, her silver eyes sharp but calm. "The Council fears you. The Empire's whisper of your defiance. To speak against a queen before the entire galaxy, none have dared that in centuries." He gave a small, nervous laugh. "I wasn't trying to make history. I was just trying not to sound stupid." Her lips curved slightly. "Yet you did make history." She moved closer, tall and graceful, her presence almost overwhelming. "And now, you must decide what to do with it." "I don't want to do anything with it," Ryan said quickly. "I'm not a hero. I'm not a leader. I'm just a guy who got lucky with a scholarship." Jalareth studied him for a long time. Then she said softly, "Perhaps that is why you interest me. You do not seek power, yet power now circles around you." Ryan frowned. "I don't understand." The Queen motioned for him to follow. They walked through the floating garden, surrounded by glowing petals and strange alien scents. "When a queen claims someone," she explained, "that act becomes a political storm. Some will want to use you. Others will wish to destroy you and to hurt me through you." Ryan stopped walking. "You're saying I'm a target now?" Her expression didn't change. "You already are." Later that day, Ryan sat alone in his quarters trying to calm his thoughts. He looked out the window where the gas giant below twisted and boiled. He thought about his family on Earth. His mother who had cried when he left for the stars. His friends who'd joked that he'd get eaten by aliens. He wondered what they were saying now. "Great," he muttered. "I'm not even 21, and I've already annoyed the most powerful alien in the galaxy." A soft voice came from behind him. "Annoyed? I thought she liked you." Ryan turned to see Alira, one of the Queen's attendants. She was smaller than most Vion, with bright green eyes and faint silver lines running along her face. "She likes watching me squirm," Ryan said. "I'm starting to think that's her entertainment." Alira smiled faintly. "The Queen tests those she respects. Most beings she ignores completely." "That's comforting," Ryan said dryly. She tilted her head. "You should rest. The Queen has ordered a public audience tomorrow. She will speak before the Council again, and you will stand beside her." "What? Why me?" "Because," Alira said softly, "you are now part of her declaration. The galaxy must see the meaning behind her choice." Ryan sighed. "I really should have stayed home." The next day came too quickly. The hall of the Galactic Council was even more crowded than before. Reporters from across the galaxy filled the outer platforms. Cameras floated in the air, capturing every angle. Ryan stood beside Queen Jalareth on a raised platform of crystal and light. Around them, alien representatives murmured in 100 languages. The Queen lifted her hand and silence fell instantly. "Delegates of the Union," she began, "you question my choice. You see danger where I see potential. You fear a species whose fire you do not understand." Her voice rolled through the chamber like thunder. "You say they are young, foolish, violent, but so were we once. So was every species that reached for the stars." She turned slightly toward Ryan. Her gaze softened. Not in weakness, but in recognition. This human stood before me without fear. He refused a throne, refused submission, refused even favor. In his defiance I saw truth, the truth of what humanity is. Ryan felt hundreds of alien eyes on him. His palms were sweaty, but he stayed still. "The Vion Dominion does not seek to own humanity," the Queen continued. "We seek to remember them, to witness their rise, to stand with them, not above them." Her words echoed through the hall. For a moment, even the most powerful races were silent. Then a voice rang out, harsh and cold. "Empty words." The crowd parted as Lord Crethar, ruler of the Dron Syndicate, stepped forward. His body shimmered with metallic scales and his eyes glowed crimson. "You speak of alliance, yet you claim him as property. You humiliate the throne you sit upon." The Queen's gaze hardened. "Careful, Crethar," the Dron Lord smirked. "You would defend a child of a primitive race? Then you are unfit to rule." Before Ryan could think, the Drawn Lord raised a hand. A blast of dark energy shot toward him like lightning. It never reached. A flash of silver light filled the room as the Queen stepped between them. The blast struck her instead, scattering into a burst of shimmering sparks. Gasps filled the hall. Guards rushed forward, but the Queen raised her hand. "Stand down." Ryan stared in shock. You took that for me." Her silver eyes glowed fiercely. "A queen protects her choices," Lord Crithar snarled. "Then you choose death." He raised his hand again, but this time Ryan moved. He grabbed the small translator device from his wrist and threw it into the air. The moment Crithar's energy beam fired, the device's power core overloaded, creating a burst of bright white light that disrupted every nearby energy signal. The blast fizzled out before reaching anyone. For a long second, no one spoke. Then the hall erupted in chaos. Guards seized Crithar as the Queen turned toward Ryan, her expression unreadable. "You risked your life," she said quietly. "Why?" Ryan shrugged, still catching his breath. "You did the same for me. I guess we're even now." Something like amusement flickered in her eyes. "Even is not a word often spoken to me." "First time for everything," Ryan said. Later, after the council meeting ended and the hall cleared, the Queen sat in her private chamber. She was silent for a long time, watching the storms on Thalrex twist below. Her advisor, General Vator, stood behind her. "You should have killed Crithar when you had the chance," he said. "I will not spill blood in a hall of peace," she replied. "He tried to strike the human," Vator said. "The boy is a weakness." "Others will see it." The Queen turned slowly. "No, General. He is not a weakness. He is a mirror. Through him, the galaxy sees what we have forgotten." "And what is that?" She looked out again at the endless storm. "Courage without calculation." That night Ryan couldn't sleep. He sat by the window in his quarters, watching lightning crawl through the gas clouds below. He still couldn't believe what had happened. He had stood beside an alien queen in front of the entire galaxy. He had faced a warlord's attack, and somehow he was still breathing. He thought about what she'd said, about freedom, about alliance, about standing together. He didn't know if he trusted her, but he knew she wasn't lying. Not entirely. Somewhere deep inside, a new thought began to take shape. Maybe humanity's place among the stars wasn't just about technology or power. Maybe it was about heart, the simple human refusal to kneel, even when the universe demanded it. And maybe, just maybe, the Queen saw that too. As the ship drifted silently through orbit, Queen Jalareth stood alone in her throne room, her gaze distant. For the first time in centuries, she felt something she hadn't known since youth: curiosity. A young human, fragile and short-lived, had looked her in the eye and treated her not as a god, not as a ruler, but as an equal. Perhaps, she thought, the age of humans had truly begun. The Vion Dominion stretched across 1,000 star systems, rich worlds, endless fleets, and ancient traditions that had lasted for centuries. But lately those traditions were cracking, and at the center of the storm sat Queen Jalareth, the one who had dared to claim a human. A growing fire. Ryan Solis had been on the Queen's flagship for 2 weeks now. 2 long, confusing weeks. He had learned that nothing on this ship was normal. The walls seemed to whisper softly. The corridors glowed like veins of light, and the air had a faint hum, as though the entire ship were alive, breathing with its queen. At first, Ryan had stayed quiet, obeying her orders and avoiding trouble. But no matter where he went, alien eyes followed him. Some were filled with curiosity, others with disgust. To many Vion nobles, the Queen's choice to bring a human aboard was an insult, a sign that their ruler had gone mad. In the Royal Council chamber, hidden deep in the heart of the ship, voices were rising. "He is a child from a primitive species," one lord shouted, slamming his clawed hand on the table. Another hissed, "He shames our people." The Dominion was built on purity, not on charity for hairless apes. The Queen sat silently at the head of the long table, her expression unreadable. Her silver eyes flickered softly, reflecting the light of the floating holograms around her. When the shouting grew too loud, she simply raised a hand and the entire room fell silent. "You speak of shame," she said quietly, her tone calm but icy. "Yet none of you have faced a war in generations. None of you have rebuilt worlds. None of you have earned the titles you wear." Her gaze moved from one face to the next. This human stood before the galaxy and did not bow. Tell me, which of you would have done the same before me? No one answered. She stood slowly. If you question my rule, then challenge me directly. But do not whisper like frightened children in my hall. The room was silent. But in the shadows, the anger only grew. The human in the lion's den, meanwhile. Rian had found a small comfort in the company of Elira, the queen's attendant. She often visited his quarters, bringing food and translating the strange symbols written across the walls. One night, as they shared a simple meal of glowing fruit and steamed grains, Ryan asked, "Why do they hate me so much?" "I didn't do anything," Elira looked down. "You exist. That is enough for some of them." "Sounds familiar," he muttered. "Humans aren't that different." She tilted her head. "Your queen believes you are special." "She's your queen," Ryan said quickly. Elira smiled slightly. "And now she has claimed you, so she is yours too, in the eyes of the Dominion." He sighed. "I don't understand her. One moment she's terrifying, the next she's kind. Like she's trying to teach me something." "She is," Elira said softly. "But not everyone wants to learn the same lesson." Ryan frowned. "What do you mean?" Elira's voice dropped to a whisper. "There are those who want the queen gone. They say she has grown weak. That claiming a human is proof she has lost her mind. Are you saying someone might try to—" She looked away. "Just be careful, Rian Salas. Not everyone aboard this ship follows her will." The first attack came 3 nights later. Rian was alone in the training deck, watching holographic stars move across the glass ceiling. The deck was empty except for a few silent drones. He liked it that way. No judging stares, no whispers. He didn't notice the flicker in the shadows at first. A tall shape detached itself from the wall. Another followed. Then a third. They wore black armor with no markings. Their movements were silent, like smoke. Before he could react, one of them lunged. A blade of blue energy flashed toward him. Ryan ducked, the weapon slicing through the air above his head. He stumbled backward and grabbed the first thing he could, a metal training rod. "I don't know what you want," he said, breathing fast. "But I'm guessing it's not a handshake." No one answered. One of the assassins hissed, "You shame our queen. You will not live to see another dawn." The first strike came again, faster this time. Ryan barely blocked it, sparks flying. He wasn't trained for combat, but instinct and fear gave him speed. He swung the rod wildly, catching one of the attackers in the shoulder. The figure staggered back, hissing in pain. Ryan turned to run but stopped as the light suddenly flickered red. A voice echoed through the room, cold, commanding. "Enough!" The assassins froze. Then one by one they dropped to their knees. From the far end of the room, Queen Jalareth stepped out of the shadows. Her silver eyes glowing like molten stars, her expression was pure fury. "Who ordered this?" she demanded. Her voice carried through the room like thunder. The assassins bowed their heads but did not speak. The queen raised one hand and the air shimmered. The assassins began to tremble as if an invisible force was pressing down on them. "I will not ask again," she said coldly. Finally, one gasped. "The council, Lord Vator," he said. That was all he managed before the energy around him cracked like lightning, sending him collapsing to the floor unconscious. The queen turned to Ryan. "You are hurt?" He shook his head, still breathing hard. "Just shaken." She studied him for a long moment, then said softly, "You fought back, without armor, without training." "I just didn't want to die," Ryan said. "Survival," she said, "is the first language of kings." The council confrontation. The next morning, the queen summoned her council again. The chamber was silent when she entered. Even the air seemed heavier. She stood at the head of the table, her gaze sweeping over the nobles. "Last night, assassins entered my ship. They attacked the human under my protection." Gasps spread around the room. The lords looked at one another in confusion, fear, and guilt. "Someone here," she continued, gave the order. Lord Vator stepped forward, his massive frame towering over the others. "Your Majesty," he said slowly, "you cannot accuse your council without proof." Her eyes narrowed. "Proof?" She lifted her hand and a projection appeared in the air, showing the attack recorded by the ship's living systems. There was no sound, but the video was clear, and in one brief moment a voice print identifier appeared, Vators. The room went silent. The Queen stepped closer to him. You would betray me? Vator's jaw tightened. I do not betray the Dominion. You betray it by shaming us before the galaxy. You risk everything, our power, our pride, for him. Ryan, who had been standing quietly behind the guards, felt every eye turned toward him. He swallowed hard. Jalareth's tone turned icy. You mistake compassion for weakness. You mistake change for corruption. That is why our kind is dying. Not because of humans, but because of fear like yours. Vator's hand went to his weapon, but the Queen moved faster. A flash of silver light filled the room, and when it faded, his weapon had melted into molten slag in his hand. She stared into his eyes. Leave my sight, or I will end your bloodline here. Vator glared at her, then turned and stormed out, his armor echoing through the hall. The Queen didn't move until the door shut behind him. Then she looked at Ryan. Now you see what your presence means. He nodded slowly. They hate me. They fear what you represent, she said. A reminder that even the smallest species can change the galaxy. A bond of respect. That evening, the Queen and Ryan stood in the observation chamber, watching the stars drift by. You saved me once, Ryan said quietly. Now you've done it again. She glanced at him, a faint smile touching her lips. You keep finding trouble. He laughed softly. I'm human. We're good at that. For a moment, the two stood in silence. The stars reflected in the glass between them. Ryan finally asked, Why me? Out of all the humans, why did you choose me? She looked thoughtful. Because you are unshaped by power. You speak truth without knowing the cost. You remind me of what I once was, before the crown. He didn't know what to say. That's a lot of pressure, her smile grew. Do not carry it as a burden. Carry it as light. She turned to leave, then paused. The storm is coming, Ryan Solace. When it does, remember this, courage is not the absence of fear. It is standing tall while the universe trembles. And then she was gone, leaving him staring out at the endless stars. In the shadows far below, in the underbelly of the Dominion's capital world, Lord Vator met with a group of alien leaders who had once sworn loyalty to the Queen. She has lost her mind, he growled. She protects the human as if he were royalty. A dark figure across the table leaned forward, eyes glowing red. Then the time has come. If she will not step down, we will make her. Vator nodded. And when she falls, humanity will fall with her. In the darkness, plans were forming. Plans that would shake the Dominion to its core. The massive arena of the Trial of Empires shimmered under 1,000 suns. It was carved into the side of a dying star, a place of legend where ancient empires once settled their greatest disputes. Every race in the galaxy watched the broadcast, from the icy moons of Torath to the floating cities of Andral Prime. This was no ordinary contest. The Queen of the Vion Dominion, Jalareth, had invoked an ancient law to defend her throne, and her decision to choose a human as her partner. Her enemies thought it madness, but the galaxy was about to learn what humanity was truly made of. The Gathering. Before the trial, Ryan Solace stood beside Queen Jalareth on a high platform overlooking the glowing arena. His heart pounded, but his face remained calm. He was wearing a lightweight battlesuit designed by both human and Vion engineers, a symbol of unity, built for both speed and protection. The Queen's golden armor shimmered like liquid sunlight, every piece carved with ancient symbols of her lineage. Yet her eyes, sharp and reptilian, softened slightly as she looked at Ryan. Are you afraid, human? She asked in her deep, resonant voice. Ryan smiled faintly. If I said no, you'd call me a liar. She gave a low musical laugh. Then we face truth together. Fear is not weakness, Ryan Solace. It is a reminder of what we protect. All around them, alien nobles filled the stands. Massive forms, shimmering bodies, mechanical beings, and others made of pure energy. The air hummed with tension. The galaxy was not here for sport. It was here to judge whether the Queen's alliance with humanity was a foolish dream or a turning point in history. The first trial, the battle of endurance. The first challenge began with a blinding flash. From the gates below, massive beasts were released, towering war creatures bred on death worlds. Each champion had to survive among them for 10 minutes. When the first creature roared, the ground shook. It was a mix of bone, muscle, and molten skin. The Queen drew her energy spear, its blade humming with light. Ryan, lacking her sheer power, activated his combat gauntlets. Simple human technology compared to the advanced weapons around them, but Ryan did not rush in. He studied the field. The alien champions all attacked directly, showing off their strength. One of them, a cyborg general, sliced through a beast's neck with mechanical precision. Another used telekinesis to crush bones mid-air. The queen fought with grace and fury, spinning her spear and striking vital points like a dancer of death. Ryan stayed close to her, but instead of attacking the beast, he planted small magnetic devices on the ground. "Ryan, what are you doing?" the queen called out. "Buying us time," he said simply. Moments later, the magnetic traps activated, pulling chunks of metal debris into spinning shields that confused the beast's senses. Their molten eyes lost focus, their balance shifted. The queen saw what he had done. He turned the environment into a weapon. The creatures, disoriented, crashed into each other. The queen took advantage and finished them with swift strikes. When the final beast fell, the crowd was silent. Not because the queen had won, but because the human had outsmarted the beasts with nothing but improvisation. The second trial, the puzzle of minds. The second trial tested intelligence. The champions were taken to a chamber of light where walls constantly shifted, forming illusions and traps. The goal reached the center before the maze collapsed. Most champions relied on advanced sensors or telepathic powers. Ryan had neither. The queen's natural senses could detect energy flows, but even she struggled here. Ryan took a deep breath. "Don't fight the maze. Watch how it reacts to us." He noticed that each time they took a wrong turn, the light dimmed slightly, as if the maze fed on confusion. So he did something unexpected. He stopped moving. "What are you doing?" Jalareth asked. "Listening," Ryan said softly. He closed his eyes. The maze made faint sounds in a rhythm like breathing. He realized the light pulses followed a pattern. Each pause between pulses was a direction cue. He smiled. "It's not a maze. It's a living intelligence testing our patience." The queen trusted him. Step by step, they followed the rhythm of the lights. The other champions grew frustrated, running blindly into walls that swallowed them whole. When they reached the center chamber, a voice filled the air. "Patience and unity guide the wise. You pass." As the light faded, the queen looked at Ryan with quiet admiration. "You heard what none of us could. You think differently, human." Ryan shrugged. Humans always had to think differently. We never had power, just creativity. The third trial. The Battle of Champions, the third and final trial, was the most brutal. Combat. Each empire's champion would fight until only one pair remained. The winners would decide the fate of the Dominion and humanity's right to stand as equals. The Queen and Ryan stepped into the arena, surrounded by 11 pairs of opponents, soldiers, monsters, and telepaths. The crowd roared like thunder. "Remember," the Queen said, "you fight beside me, not behind me." "I wasn't planning to hide," Ryan replied with a grin. The first wave came fast, twin cyborgs with energy blades that cut through stone. The Queen met them head-on, her spear spinning in golden arcs. Sparks and plasma filled the air. Ryan darted between them, using his smaller frame to strike at weak joints. When one of the cyborgs swung toward Ryan, he ducked and slammed a gauntlet into its leg joint, releasing an electric pulse. The metal leg locked up, and the Queen's spear finished it in a single motion. "Good teamwork," she said. Ryan smirked. "I'm learning from the best." But the next enemy was far deadlier, a telepath from the Zykar Collective. The creature had no face, only a swirling mist for a head. It whispered into their minds, showing illusions of pain and despair. Ryan felt his memories twist, flashes of his home, his mother's voice, Earth burning under alien skies. He gritted his teeth. "Not real," he muttered. The Queen too struggled, clutching her head. The telepath laughed inside their minds. Ryan grabbed her arm and shouted, "Focus on me, not the illusion." He activated his suit's communication jammer, flooding the area with static noise. The telepath's influence broke for a moment, long enough for the Queen to lunge forward and pierce its core with her spear. The mist vanished, leaving silence. The crowd gasped again. A human, breaking a telepath's hold, unheard of. The final opponent, only one pair remained. The champions of the Sith Coalition, powerful beings with armor made of living crystal. The Queen and Rian were tired, their energy almost drained. But retreat was not an option. The battle was fierce. Energy blasts filled the arena. The ground cracked and debris rained down. The Queen took several hits protecting Rian. "Leave me," she hissed through pain. "You can't fight them alone." Rian ignored her. "We don't leave allies behind. That's not human nature." He ran forward, using his gauntlet's last charge to overload the scythe's crystal armor. The explosion threw both enemies back, shattering their shields. When the dust cleared, one of the scythe champions was impaled on debris, the other barely standing. Rian, bleeding and exhausted, stepped closer, but instead of finishing him, he lowered his weapon. The alien stared at him in disbelief. "Why do you spare me?" Rian said quietly. "Because if we keep killing for pride, no one will ever learn peace." The arena fell silent again. Even the Queen, watching from where she knelt, felt something stir in her chest, an emotion she had long buried. The remaining scythe champion bowed slightly, acknowledging defeat. The trial was over. The victory that changed everything. As the Queen and Rian stood together in the center of the arena, the ancient judges of the trial appeared as projections of light. By strength, by wit, and by spirit, the Vion Queen and her chosen human stand victorious. Cheers erupted across the galaxy. For the first time in history, humanity had proven itself not by conquest or weapons, but by courage, intelligence, and mercy. The Queen turned to Rian. "You have done more than win. You have shown them what I could not." Rian smiled weakly. "You showed them too, Your Majesty. You showed them that a queen can listen." She gave a proud, quiet nod. "Then we both learned today." As they left the arena, the crowd chanted their names. The Queen who defied the empires, and the human who refused to bow. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. The galaxy did not sleep that night. Every star system, every news channel, every alien world spoke of one event: the impossible victory of the Vion Queen and her human ally. The trial of empires had ended, and for the first time in centuries, the galaxy's oldest powers had been humbled by two beings from worlds that could not be more different. But the story did not end with their victory. It began there. After the battle inside the Queen's flagship, the Star Palace, silence filled the royal chamber. The walls shimmered with soft blue light, reflecting the stars outside. Rian Solace sat on a resting chair, his arm wrapped in bandages. His armor was cracked, his gauntlets scorched from the final explosion. He looked tired, but his eyes were bright, alive with quiet pride. Queen Jalareth stood near the grand window, watching the stars drift slowly past. Her golden armor had been removed, replaced by a ceremonial robe woven from living silk. The battle marks on her scales still glowed faintly. For a long time she said nothing. Then, in a voice softer than usual, she spoke. "You surprised even me, human. The galaxy called you weak, but today they saw something they could not understand." Rian smiled faintly. "Humans are small, yes, but sometimes small things make the biggest noise." Jalareth turned to look at him. "You risked your life not once, but many times, for me, for others, even for an enemy." "Why?" Rian thought for a moment. "Because life only matters if it's shared. If you fight just to win, the victory dies with you. But if you fight for others, it becomes something that lasts." The Queen looked at him quietly. She had ruled for over 100 cycles, fought countless wars, and seen empires burn. But no general, no philosopher had ever said something so simple, or so true. The galaxy reacts on distant worlds, people argued, cheered, and protested. Some said the Queen had broken tradition by allowing a human to fight beside her. Others said she had shown the courage of a true leader. The Vion Council, her own advisors, demanded a meeting. In the grand chamber of the Dominion, high lords and nobles surrounded her throne. Their jeweled eyes glowed with arrogance. "The galaxy laughs at us," one shouted. "You placed your trust in a creature barely out of its cradle." Another hissed, "Humans are unpredictable. They could destroy everything we've built." Jalareth listened silently. Then she rose from her throne, her golden eyes sharp as lightning. "You speak of pride," she said. "You speak of fear, but you do not see the truth. The human did what none of you could. He fought not for himself, but for unity, for something greater than a crown." The hall went quiet. Her voice filled the chamber like thunder. "If that is weakness, then may we all learn to be weak. Not one lord dared to speak after that. The wounds of the queen later that night. In her private chambers, Jalareth sat alone. The sounds of distant ships echoed faintly beyond the window. For the first time in many years, she removed her royal crown and placed it on the table beside her. It felt heavy now, heavier than ever before. She looked at her reflection in the mirror. A ruler, a warrior, a queen who had spent a lifetime protecting her empire through fear and strength. But now she saw something different. In her reflection's golden eyes, she saw humanity. She saw Ryan's courage, his defiance, his compassion. It made her heart ache. When the door opened, she didn't turn. She already knew who it was. Ryan entered quietly, holding 2 cups of steaming drink. I figured even queens need a break. She gave a small laugh. You are bold, human. Bringing tea into a throne room. Hey, Ryan said with a grin. Tea solves half of humanity's problems. He handed her 1 cup. Their hands brushed briefly, and for a moment, silence filled the space between them. It wasn't awkward. It was calm, peaceful. They sat side by the great window, watching stars flow like rivers of light. The council's threat. The peace did not last. The next morning, the Galactic Council transmitted a message. A massive hologram appeared in the Queen's Hall. The faces of a dozen alien rulers, their expressions cold and severe. Queen Jalareth, the lead voice said, your trial victory has shaken the balance of power. You have united with a human, a species too young to understand galactic law. This alliance cannot continue. Ryan stood beside her, listening carefully. You wish to punish me for winning? The Queen asked calmly. We wish to preserve order, the council leader replied. Release the human, renounce your bond, and your throne will remain yours. The Queen did not answer immediately. Her claws tightened on the edge of her throne. The entire hall waited for her response. Finally, she spoke. No. The word echoed through the chamber like a thunderclap. I will not renounce him, she said firmly. You call him young, I call him brave. You call him reckless, I call him alive. If the galaxy cannot see that humanity's strength is its heart, then the galaxy has already lost its way. The council cut the connection without another word, but the message was clear. War was coming. The choice of the Queen. That night, the Queen gathered her closest commanders. Some supported her. Others feared rebellion. One commander said, Your Majesty, if you defy the council, the Dominion may fall. The Queen looked around the room. Then let it fall and rise again, stronger, wiser. This alliance is not a mistake. It is a beginning. When the meeting ended, Ryan found her standing alone once more. You don't have to fight for me, he said softly. You've already done enough. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. You think I fight for you, Ryan Solace? He hesitated. Don't you? She stepped closer, her voice calm but powerful. No, human. I fight with you. That is what you taught me. The difference between owning and belonging, between ruling and leading. Ryan felt a lump in his throat. For the first time, he realized how much she had changed, not as a queen, but as a person. The Great Speech. Few days later, Jalareth called for a universal broadcast. Every screen across the galaxy lit up with her image. The Queen standing beside the human who had changed everything. She raised her head and spoke, her voice strong and clear. For too long, we have lived in fear of what is different. We call the new dangerous, the young reckless, the weak useless. But the truth is this. Life evolves because it dares to be different. The camera turned slightly, showing Ryan beside her, standing tall in his worn battlesuit. This human stood against death itself, not for power, but for hope. He saved not only me, but our future. Humanity does not seek to rule us, they seek to join us. And I, Jalareth of the Vian Dominion, will not let fear destroy that hope. There was silence across the galaxy. Then slowly, one planet after another began to cheer. Ships flashed lights of alliance in the void. The message had reached the people, not just leaders, but billions of common citizens who had grown tired of endless pride and wars. For the first time, a queen and a human stood side by side, not as conqueror and subject, but as equals. The aftermath weeks passed. The council, faced with massive support for the Queen's declaration, had no choice but to recognize the new alliance. Humanity was now officially accepted as an independent and respected member of the Galactic Union. Trade routes opened, cultural exchanges began, and joint fleets patrolled the borders to keep peace. Rian was offered many honors, medals, titles, even a seat on the new council, but he refused most of them. "I didn't come here to become famous," he said. "I came to show them we're worth listening to." Queen Jalareth smiled. "And you did, Ryan Solace. You gave them something no weapon could: belief." The final moment one evening, the Queen and Ryan stood again at the same window where their journey had begun. Outside, the stars shone brighter than ever. Ryan looked at her and said quietly, "You once said I would be yours." Jalareth smiled, a rare softness in her sharp features. "And I learned that no one can own a human heart. It only follows where it chooses." Ryan chuckled. "Then I choose to stand by your side as a friend." The Queen nodded slowly. "Then, friend, let us rule not through fear, but through hope." As the two stood together, the stars reflected in their eyes, and human and alien, united in purpose, their bond changing the fate of 1,000 worlds. The galaxy would remember this day forever, the day a queen claimed a human,